and thank you everyone. And it was such a delightful, lovely experience to understand the perspective of every person from the lines of how everyone thinks about sustainability and brings in the right thought process, and why we are still lacking behind as in India. Because Ravi sir, you and I, and especially Pratiji, we have been revolving around the globe, and we have seen how people are unaware of this whole domain. And it is the right platform, as you all said, that we have to come at the same stage and discuss more about it. There may be certain negativities and certain positivities to it, but as and when we discuss more and more, then only it will get more clearer and clearer for everyone out there. Thank you, everyone. It was nice for you and having your time, giving time to us. So hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was a very nice and well orchestrated session on the lines of sustainability, climate change. And I was mesmerized with the thoughts that they give, because in India, normally people do not talk on those lines. And people from such a huge domain talking on those lines, understanding that those lines gives more strength to companies like us, that we are bringing in the right solution to the market and bridging the gap. So now we are already running late. So let's go to the next and the final panel discussion that we are going to have today. And it is an interesting session which takes care of the logistics and supply chain, something that has never been discussed anywhere, wherever we have been in such discussions. And we normally, as a company, also forget this important channel of the whole thought process. And hosting this panel discussion will be Parul Soni. She's the business officer at ClearMeet, and with her we have speakers from NITIE. We have Professor VB Khanapuri. He's the associate professor. Professor Rofin, he is the assistant professor at NITIE, and we have senior leader sustainability of FedEx, Mr. Vaibhav Gupta. So it's over to you, Parul, and have a lovely discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Siddharth, for introducing me. I think I have been talking since morning, but somehow I realized, that probably I have not introduced myself before talking. So, hello, audience. I must say, as Siddharth just said, that this has been such a great day, and we have been attending the discussion since morning. Frankly speaking, it's a big day for us, and for me specifically, I've heard so much about, cultured meat and alternative protein as the industry. I've heard from scientists, I've heard from investors, I've heard from, senior people from the similar industry. I've heard from PhD scholars. However, everyone talked a lot. We heard about sustainability people. Somehow we always, in the entire discussion, we always miss this particular section, that we have made a product. The product is there, right? And we are talking about how we will bring policies and everything, but who will make it possible? So today I'm going to host the session on supply chain and operations to compress this entire supply chain and operations, to have this entire industry coming in to manage it. So we have Professor Rofin, who works with NITIE. NITIE is National Institute of Industrial Engineering. It's the COE for Center of Excellence for Center of Excellence. Sorry, I'm very, very nervous. So it's Center of Excellence for Industrial Engineering, Supply Chain and Logistics. We have Mr. Vaibhav Gupta, who is a very senior leader with FedEx. Hello, sir. And we have Professor VB Khanapuri, who is Dean Innovation and Research. And VB Khanapuri, sir, has a lot of experience, almost spanning to 25 years working with NITIE. So here we are, and let's start the discussion. I would like to have Professor Rofin, Professor Khanapuri, sir, and Vaibhav, sir, to start with their opening remarks. So, Professor Rofin, over to you.
Thank you very much. I indeed consider it as a privilege to be part of this conference and this panel discussion. Thank you for inviting me for this panel discussion. So thank you for your kind words. And as we progress, I will put forward my points with respect to maybe the supply chain design or maybe how the consumer acceptance is going to drive the supply chain design. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Parul, and thanks everyone from Clear Meet side for organizing this session. I believe it will be very useful for students as well as those who really want to learn and know more about this industry. And so today's session and all the time investment should add them a lot of value, and all the best to everybody.
Yeah, good afternoon to all. Good afternoon, Parul. Thank you very much for introducing us to the participants. In fact, when I look at the theme and what we are going to discuss, or probably the approach we plan to adopt, it seems very exciting for me. I would also like to listen to my co-panelist, understand a little bit more about you, and then of course I will give my perspectives, maybe not as an expert, but yes, as a person who has been there and more like a practitioner who would like to share his views. Probably will set some directions for those who are listening and for those who are going to be actively getting engaged in this industry going forward from here. Thank you, and look forward to this engaging discussion.
Perfect, perfect. So, we have heard about how, cultivated meat sector is growing and how the supply chain in cultivated meat sector is going to be. So I will ask my first question to, the veteran in this industry, Vaibhav sir, who is from FedEx, that, if he can explain to us, the panelists, as well as to the audience, that, if he can explain the supply chain in the traditional meat industry and how it is going to be different in cultivated meat industry.
Thanks, Parul. This is very interesting question. And I mean, the supply chain is very much set for traditional meat industry. It is not, if you talk about frozen, if you talk about raw meat shops, everything, all the media and options are very much available. So if I talk about how this really works, because to move to cultivated, we also need to know how is the traditional logistics industry or supply chain for this. So it's a complete chain, whereas the companies like DHL Express or FedEx or UPS or all those global players also come in picture when we talk about the express logistics parts, because this is not something which can be moved having a long transit time. It has to be a kind of 24 to 72-hour service at max, because that's what our ecosystem or the gel packs, dry ice, or whatever modes are there with support. So on this particular aspect, I would like to say UN 3373, which is a biological samples, which is a very well-established human tissues, blood samples, and something which move across for various testing purpose. This is very well set in industry. There are packaging guidelines available. There are storage guidelines available. And then how the disposal has to happen, all those things are there. So same way, when we look around, what we have to do, probably that will be the future in terms of developing the solutions for cultivated meat industry also. Second thing is, there are certain techniques. I mean, we have to also identify which range of temperature it is going to be controlled. So there are generally three range. We talk about frozen, which is sub-zero or up to -20, -30 degree, then 2 to 8 degree, which is a cool range, or then third one is ambient. So all the airports and the supply chain is designed to cater in these three temp zones. Okay, so we have to also find out, and then for the traditional industry, it's very well said. There is another technique which is called invertainers, and I'm talking about it's for cargo planes. So inverter is a container which can be charged about 48 hours, and then it will give us a temperature range up to -28 degrees Celsius for next 48 hours. So I mean, something which is frozen will remain really fresh till it reaches to destination. And in between of this supply chain, there are various uh, airports which provides the services, and those services are, for example, in Dubai, it's a flower center, which is nothing but which provides the 3 temperature zones. So whenever shipment reaches at destination or it is originating, those are kept there to ensure that the temperature zones are maintained. So all I'm just trying to say, in supply chain, the traditional part, which is a cooling, is very, very important, maintaining a temperature, because lot of places acceptance is totally based on the data logger. So the entire meat kit, or if some shipment of fish, will be accepted only and only if the entire journey has certain temperature range from pickup to delivery, then only that product will be qualified for acceptance. Otherwise, the entire lot will be rejected. So these parameters becomes very, very important and critical in the supply chain. Now coming to uh, cultivated chain, I think two parameters which are really different than the traditional meat industry. So here it's mainly how we develop the cultivated chain, and that's where how we really get the raw material, how we get that material developed into fresh meat, and then how that gets supplied is entire supply chain. But the first part is also very critical, and the cost aspects are very, very important, and how we scale to those levels so we meet the demand plus we remain cost effective. These are the two key questions which I will really love to have, or we need to focus in this forum also.
Definitely, sir. I think, you have made my life easy here. You have given me the cues to ask the second question. So yes, basis, how we are going, then I would like to ask you again, that how do you think, how does the cost structure of a traditional meat industry, the supply chain here differs in comparison to the cultivated meat industry? And what are these factors? And how you think, we would probably in future will tackle these factors to come into the proper industrialization of traditional cultivated meat. So you are on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, so the way I understand, cultivated meat industry requires the development of that cell to a meat, and that cycle is very important. How we make that lean, how we make that more efficient and productive. So certain things can't be controlled to limit. For example, there is a development cycle of 15 days when that those cells grow and take a shape of meat. So if we want to inject more growth material, probably that can really increase the cycle, but I'm not expert on that thing. So I'm considering that as a constraint for now. Second thing is how we really develop to a mass scale, because for developing a mass scale to get this as a industry, we have to have that infrastructure. And that infrastructure is really related to bioreactors, how we get the cells. And I understood from you as well as reading other things, cells are easily available. I mean, so that's one thing which is sorted, at least from India perspective. But these bioreactors are really very expensive. Those are not easily available. We have to import those, and it also takes a lot of space to set up multiple reactors. So in terms of space utilization, the warehousing area will be much more as compared to the traditional meat industry. So these are some of the limitation factors, and as per my understanding, the cost to set up a reactor which is which is capable of producing about 18 ton of meat in this 15 days of cycle is about $6 million. So it's reactor plus growth material plus manpower plus everything put together. So huge investment in terms of capacity creation. And then once those kind of capacity available, then probably these things can be easily taken forward. But I mean, as of now, importing everything is really a bottleneck and kind of challenge.
Completely agree, sir. I would like to add few points here, So definitely importing. So we import bioreactors for sure, and we import the growth media. And that is what, we were discussing in earlier of our sessions, that if we can move towards homemade, homemade growth media, and if we can move towards the growth media, which is plant based. So that will definitely going to have a good impact on our entire supply chain, but very valid point. So with this valid point, I want to ask another question that as traditional meat industry is already set and cultivated meat industry is setting up, and as you explained us, that majorly it is not same, it is not completely different also. So this question is to Professor Rofin, that Professor Rofin, how would you think that the traditional meat industry partners can help and support the new industry which is coming up, which is cultivated meat industry, how they can help in support it to become more efficient and more sustainable?
Thank you, Parul, for that question. So before actually addressing this topic of how the traditional meat industry is going to help the emerging or upcoming the cultivated meat or so-called cultured meat kind of an supply chain or industry, what I understand from my research is that currently, if I'm taking that say cultivated meat value chain, the entire Indian context is mainly focusing on the upstream part of it. Maybe if I want to detail what is the kind of say cultivated meat value chain, maybe you can say there are different activities like say cell line development, or maybe the growth media, the scaffolds, and the reactors in which maybe this process will happen. And further down is what is going to happen, the production, distribution, and all other aspects of the supply chain. So there are several efforts from Indian firms to enhance or to strengthen this upstream process. But I will say that the efforts needs to be further accelerated. And here, the traditional life sciences companies like say biomanufacturing firms and this kind of life sciences companies will be able to help this industry to go further downstream. So I can see that see this company, life science company called Merck. They have set up a Merck Innovation Hub in Silicon Valley for this clean meat innovation. So this is one way in which a life science company has supported this kind of a clean meat or maybe this cultivated meat kind of an industry. More than that, I have also learned that this currently in India, what we are using is a kind of a biomedical grade media. So this biomedical grade media is not very suitable for large scale industrial production. So research has to be done for maybe serum free media as well. So this is also will be one role or one collaboration possibility between a life science company and the firms in this particular cultivated meat industry. And as I can see, there are different multi-agent kind of a situation in this cultivated meat industry. There are government players like say DBT, and there are NGOs like Good Food Institute, GFI, and there are educational institutions like say IIT Bombay who is incubating. Then there are private players like say Clear Meat. So it's a kind of a multi-agent kind of a framework that is currently prevailing in India. So in the upstream side itself, there is a need for more collaborations. And government can also play a role in this collaborations. What I can see is there is a body called CMMC, that is Cultivated Meat kind of consortium, Cultivated Meat Modeling Consortium. So this is like some of the efforts that should be put forward by the industry to have more collaborations in the upstream. And as my fellow panelist, Mr. Vaibhav Gupta has mentioned, one critical point in the supply chain is this bioreactors. So there, the production of this cultivated meat can happen either as a batch or in a kind of a continuous fashion. So this continuous fashion or continuous kind of the production of this cultivated meat will happen if you are having the perfusion bioreactors. And as you might be aware, the cost of this bioreactor is prohibitively expensive. So some sustainable, the bioreactors also has to be made a little bit less costly. For that, you should have some kind of a media recycling technology. So with this media recycling technology, that will minimize the input as well as the wastage. And also there should be some real-time quality control So that will take care of the kind of pH level, or maybe the temperature level, or maybe the pressure level. So all these parameters has to be properly set that the wastage is minimized. So unless we are having this kind of perfusion bioreactors, then it will be very difficult to sustain the production from an economic point of view. Now, let me actually come to your question with this background. So your question was, okay, how the traditional meat industry can support the emerging cultivated meat industry. I have a different viewpoint here. If you're looking into the traditional meat supply chain, maybe let me take a new age company like say Licious. So when I try to explore the supply chain of Licious, it starts with the farmers definitely from the animals. Then it is being taken to the slaughterhouses. Further from the slaughterhouses, it is being taken to the processing centers where the cleaning, cutting, and packaging is happening. And after the processing center, it is going to the delivery center. Finally, depending on the customer orders, it is the last mile deliveries happening. So this particular traditional meat, or maybe the modern age, this Licious kind of meat companies, their supply chains are very, very long, and it is having multiple echelons. So if I'm thinking from the cultivated meat, where we are producing the meat inside the perfusion bioreactor, so this can be made very close to the market. So what I envision, or what I propose as a supply chain design for the cultivated meat industry, will be a kind of an integrated production come delivery center that will take care of the production aspects as well as the distribution aspects, that will be very close to the market. So the overall length of the supply chain will be minimum. And because of this, there are several advantages. One thing is that less number of intermediaries means your demand forecast will be more accurate. You'll be able to get more precise market information. Then the second aspect is that lead time will be less. If the lead time is going to be less, definitely the safety stock requirements or the inventory requirements are going to further come down because of lower demand variability as well as lower lead time variability. And also one more thing that I'm proposing is with respect to the flexibility in the capacity. Basically, your capacity is defined by the capacity of your bioreactor. Now, since you're in this integrated production come distribution center, production part will be taken by the bioreactors. You can have a reconfigurable kind of a production system. But depending if one region has high demand, it is easy for you to be flexible and shift the capacity to that region. So this is what I'm envisioning for this cultivated meat kind of a supply chain.
Wow, I mean, I think we should make a flow chart of what you have just said. It should be presented in a diagram, because this is definitely this. Yeah, it should be presented in a diagram, and I'll probably ask my creative team to create a diagram, on proposed value chain for the cultivated meat industry. And I think I will tag Licious also. Even they will get benefited of this proposed value chain. I think this is really good. But as I've been hearing Vaibhav and I'm hearing you, I just realized that we all are not from this industry, right? We are from traditional supply chain and logistics industry, and this is the new industry which is coming up. So I have a question, from you, Rofin sir, that how would you see this paradigm shift being accepted by the world? How do you see the consumer? And in my case, when I say consumers are not just the end consumers. Consumers are the partners in that entire value chain. How would you see the acceptance happening with these partners? And how it is going to impact the entire supply chain, and how it is going to impact the efficiency of the supply chain?
Sure. So this is a very, very relevant question, because ultimately your supply chain design has to be or in a particular manner that caters to the market demand. So market demand again comes from the consumer or customer acceptance. Now I can take different perspectives on this. Now, in say maybe marketing literature, you would have heard about something called as a product adoption curve. So any new product that is coming to the market, the customers will be adopting it at different rates. So maybe there are innovators who will adopt the product quickly. Then there will be early adopters, and there is early majority. So the market is accepting a product at different rates, and this percentage also varies. But there are so many barriers for the cultivated meat industry or cultivated meat to be accepted. There are certain reasons also. We call it as a kind of a food neophobia. This can be because of kind of distrust in science. people, some people or some segment of the society is not going to subscribe to this modern scientific development and the product that is coming from that scientific advancements. They'll have so many questions. Then there is something called as a naturalness bias. So people tend to, maybe there is a huge demand for organic products and things like that. So this naturalness bias is also going to impact, it is also going to act as a barrier for adoption of this particular product. More than that, the information asymmetry. We are speaking about, say, bioreactors. We are speaking about the cell banking scaffolds. How you are going to minimize this information asymmetry between the supply side and the market side. So this will be the major challenges of any firm who is operating in this particular segment. Now, okay, taken care that, okay, consumer acceptance is there in place and a threshold number of customers have already accepted this product. They are willing to consume this product. They want this product to be on their table. And the next question will be, okay, how you are going to make it available for this customers. Then definitely you can partner with the existing players in the FMCG who has got that logistic capabilities and hyperlocal delivery kind of capabilities. So what I feel is, suppose you're planning to have a collaboration with Licious. So Licious is currently into, I'm just giving as an example to drive the challenge. Now, if say Licious is currently into the traditional meat, now you are trying to sell the cultivated meat. So there is a particular challenge of straddling. If the consumer acceptance of the product is less, then consumer may think that Licious is mixing these two kinds of product. So ideally, if the consumer acceptance is less, if it is less than a threshold, definitely this should be segregated or should be separated. In that case, if the consumer acceptance is less, it will be ideal for a firm who is distributing the cultivated meat to have a collaboration with a firm which is having hyperlocal delivery or logistics capability, but is not into the meat industry. Okay, but if the consumer acceptance is higher, then definitely the straddling issues might not happen, and there it makes sense to have a collaboration with the distribution or maybe a firm which is already into the meat industry. So this is my take on that. And again, what I feel is whatever I've suggested in terms of the decentralized supply chain, this thing. So there also it is better to have a hyper-local delivery model. And it will be easy for us to understand the market demand and the 15 days of lead time for making this cultivated meat. So with that, we'll be able to manage the local demand. So this is what I am feeling with respect to the consumer acceptance and how it triggers the supply chain design, how these two factors are linked.
No, this is completely, relevant to what you said. And just to tell you, we are in discussion with Licious. Licious has already created a category for, for cultivated meat. But we are still waiting. And, this brings to my next question that, we are waiting for the regulatory bodies to come up with the proper regulations that, how these kind of products, this cultivated meat kind of product should be marketed, should be brought on the table, on the plate of the consumer. So with this cue, I want to ask my next question to Khanapuri sir, that, sir, can you, if you can throw some light on what do you see, how do you see the regulatory landscape for cultivated meat industry going to change, and it is how it is going to be compared with the traditional industry, how it can be navigated to bring, the success of this industry, what kind of regulatory changes, standards, quality matrix needs to be there. Over to you, sir.
I think Vaibhav and I'm just, like I said earlier also, I'm just taking the cues from my co-panelists, and the way they have presented the issue, I would like to see what kind of implications will they have on the regulatory part of it. Like when Vaibhav was talking about how the customer accepts in a traditional industries on extensive data logging, especially the temperature. Yes, this is an issue which needs to be factored into as far as your entire acceptance is concerned. Vaibhav also was mentioning about certain kinds of samples being shipped, and there are certain regulatory frameworks. We need to look at what these regulatory frameworks are and how they are being administered. Similarly, when when Professor Rofin was talking about, especially for this industry, there's a need for collaboration. And if at all there is a need for collaboration, how will these collaborations work? And what kind of arrangements or what kind of mechanisms would regulate this kind of situation? So I'm just trying to I'm not going to answer all these questions. I'm just trying to pick a cue how this will lead to certain kinds of regulatory kind of things. Now, when we say that there is going to be a product adoption curve and there is going to be innovation which is going to be required, right? Then there also has to be certain kinds of frameworks, regulatory guidelines. How do you protect them, right? Now, you will come up with a lot of new things, but then if you don't have the right kind of guidelines, it is going to become a big mess there. And similarly, when you're looking at the concept of when Professor Rofin was talking about distrust, right? This was also kind of thing coming from either it is a quality issue or is it primarily emerging from the inability of the end consumer to figure out whether this product which I am going to consume, is it going to make some sense or is it going to have some implications? So I think there are a lot of issues which need to be addressed, and at least for the Indian context, I don't see that we need to reinvent the wheel. Already there are many countries which have already established these kind of frameworks. So we need to pick up what kind of frameworks are already there in place and how these frameworks are being made operational. Like, for example, if we are talking of a country like Singapore, which was the first one to establish this kind of framework, now there the primary emphasis was always on, testing the end product. And this basically gives a kind of confidence to the end consumer. And if the regulatory framework has to be there, then how is the testing going to be there, or what kind of mechanisms or what kind of procedures will be there, have to be established for testing your end product. Now, this is also another aspect which is basically leading as a next fallout of this is whatever food, whatever is being produced, right? It is for human consumption, and if it has to be safe, then somebody has to have a mechanism or a framework to say that yes, there are no food safety or risks associated with the product. Not just the product. I think it has to go to the other elements which are very critical, or other components which are very critical in this particular industry, which is including the media or the cells or the scaffolds, whatever the terminology or whatever the raw materials which are being used. For me, it is like saying that your regulatory framework should touch base or have clarity on these elements. Also important is to look at if there are certain kinds of categories in which this particular product falls into, and if so, then it should have clarity in terms of yes, is it genetically modified, is it non-genetically modified? So we need to have a little bit of clarity in terms of understanding these elements as a part of your regulatory framework. Now, the more specific these regulations will come, it will have a better consumer acceptance. Of course, you need to have those procedures and all those things established so that these tests are well carried out. Similarly, we could also look at how these policy or the frameworks have been developed in other countries like US, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Israel. In fact, in many of these countries, there's a huge investment which is being made, and it is not being done without any consideration. Yes, they are definitely doing with a lot of consideration. So you need to look at how these frameworks are considering the various definitions and nomenclatures, the processes. So if we can pick those elements and then develop those kind of requirements fulfilling our needs, it can really help. And the last point, probably, which I would like to add here is in terms of, I'll say, a very important element is, like I was talking about, the lot of innovations will need to come in. We were talking of, Vaibhav was talking about the kind of equipments. Now, equipments, more so specifically, I did some little bit of study on that. Now, like he said, the cost of scaling up, basically the bioreactors. Now, all these things are going to lead to a lot of need for coming up with technological developments, innovations, including not just the product, but the process, as well as various elements which are going to contribute to this industry. And hence, not just the intellectual property rights, but also important to have a way to protect the trade secrets. Everything needs to be looked into. And what I want to finally conclude is, if I were to look at creation of a regulatory framework, right, we may also need to look at maybe not all these players are going to be there. They are not going to be just doing it for locals. They might be doing it for export. So they also have to consider how the people who will be participating in the investments in the local markets or probably for exports. So the regulatory bodies may have to additionally look at creating these kind of frameworks with a approach that there has to be an ease of doing business as far as within the country is concerned or for export is concerned. I hope I have covered some of these points which came to my mind. If there's anything else I would like to add.
Sure, sir. No, this is very intensive, and as you just said, there are a lot of regulatory things which need to come. A very interesting question came from the audience, and I think it will be answered from the regulatory bodies as well. But I would want you to put some idea to it. So the question is that how anyone will differentiate between a meat coming from cultivated meat or a normal meat. How the end user will understand.
Yeah. See, I believe there has to be a specific kind of elements which need to be certified or tested, stated that these are the elements which clearly tell that this is where it is coming from, and only then probably the customer will have a better acceptance. Like you might say it is plant-based, but you might say it is animal-based, but if it is plant-based is being used, then it is not going to be accepted once they come out of the truth. So I think these kind of standards will have to be established in terms of how these growth media or whatever is the material which is being used, what kind of things are being adopted, need to be regulated properly. Otherwise, this may not really help.
Definitely, sir. And I think not just regulations. There has to be another kind of innovation which needs to happen in the supply chain industry. So this brings to my last question, that what kind of technical advancements and automations you see supply chain industry using to make this entire cultivated meat industry making more scalable, more efficient, more trustworthy?
Okay. In fact, from the supply chain perspective, when I look at it, right, or the industry which we are talking of, one of the critical aspects, like what Professor Rofin pointed out, the customer's acceptance, right? Now, what is important is ability to trace, right? Ability to have a mechanism to ensure that there is a proper way of ascertaining the product's traceability, ensuring there is a proper coordination between the various people who are participating it, and most importantly, like what Vaibhav said, because of the life which we are talking of, it has to be done in a most efficient way, and hence some of these technologies like blockchain technologies can be very well deployed in these kind of industry, which will take care of probably these three elements in terms of improving faster and efficient delivery, ensuring product traceability, and improving the coordination between the various players who are going to play a role in terms of ensuring that the product reaches the end consumer. That is one thing which I can say here. The second is in terms of what happens is, because this is a new product which is going to come in the market now, very rightly said, you can move closer to the market, you can have flexibility, and then look at the way in which you can shift your production plans and all those things. Now, all this essentially means you need to have accurate capacity planning. You need to look at how do we look at the demand forecasting, or probably see how the entire end-to-end supply chain, right from inbound raw material to your manufacturing to your making the product available, the end-to-end, right, needs to be very, very efficient. It has to be low on cost, and all this is possible if we can design our adopt artificial intelligence in supply chains along with powerful optimization capabilities. I think this can make great wonders. You can leverage the benefits which this particular product is able to offer, unlike the conventional one where you have got certain set of constraints there. Here, you can move closer to the market. You can have certain capacities based on what kind of demands are going to be there. So use of artificial intelligence can make a huge impact as far as in the supply chains, as far as adoption of these technologies are there. Similarly, there are other things which will go along with this innovations which need to be included in this kind of industry. Could be in terms of some of these techniques or technologies which are being adopted, like for example, use of ultrasound. Now, this is there, it is being used, and if I'm not sure right now if it is going to make sense, but yes, ultrasound can have a positive influence, and they can be generally they are adopted to increase the food quality and safety. Now, these are some of these things which can be considered. Then, considering some of these technologies which are coming up, concept of nanotechnologies, which are going to be a kind of what we call it as nano ingredients which can be infused. So these are some of the ways in which you can the concept of nanotechnology which can be adopted, of course, within the product quality requirements being fulfilled and not violating any of those requirements. So these kind of nanotechnology based can potentially benefit in the product which you're talking of. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, sir, definitely. I think there is lot to be, still thought about. There is lot to be innovated. There's lot to be tested in this segment. And then definitely, then only once it is done, then we have to create a very, very efficient value chain, a very, very efficient supply value chain to make sure, that this is not just made efficiently, but this is also procured efficiently. Then it is, stored properly, and then it is, probably as Rofin sir explained, it is transported to the last customer efficiently. So with this, I would like to end the discussion with the closing remarks from all the participants. So probably, Vaibhav sir, can you just give, your closing remarks, maybe a 2-line on how you felt and how you see this entire industry growing?
No, this is very, very exciting space. Honestly, I also learned a lot just to prepare for this conference about this entire upcoming technology, what is happening in this segment. And as Khanapuri said, the importance of those ultrasonic and all. So ultrasound test, for example, I'm right now seeing for the shipping of mangoes, for shipping of lot of things, US FDA is so punctual. They opened a facility in Nasik, Lasangao, where all the mangoes are going, and those mangoes should also be from the stem trees. It is not that any tree can provide those mangoes, and those have to go through sanitization process. Then there has to be certain phytosanitary checks, certificates have to be obtained, and even the pallet which is made of wood has to be insecticide, and there are certain tests which we have to obtain, then only these can be shipped. So I am just talking about from a export perspective, but same thing, same supply chain ideas, packaging, raw material testing, safety, security will have to be developed for this product, and that's what is going to be big evolution and potential. So thanks a lot, Parul and Clear Meet team, for organizing this session, and really good learning for me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So Rofin sir, what are your closing remarks for this particular, session and for the entire industry?
Yeah. Actually, thank you for that closing remarks. This thing. What I feel is, see, there is this need for this product as soon as possible in the market because of sustainability reasons, because of nutritional reasons, because of undesirable effects of traditional meats such as maybe the saturated fat content and everything. So there is no doubt that this country needs this kind of a product. So how to make it happen will be definitely the upstream process, more collaborations on the upstream value chain. And once the upstream value chain has kind of a matured or it has taken a certain shape, definitely this downstream that should make it feasible to run it on a lower cost or maybe higher efficiency mode. So that is where the role of the supply chain design comes in. So this upstream collaboration is going to drive this kind of a journey. So there is no doubt that this product is this product is needed by this country at the earliest. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I wish all the best to this firm. And we wish that this product will come with all the regulatory requirements and everything to the market very soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rofin sir. So Khanapuri sir, I'll really take a pleasure for asking what are your closing remarks?
Yeah, I think 2 quick points. One, going forward, looking at, of course, in the Indian context, probably we are going to be one of the most populous country, and the kind of requirements we have, I think not adopting these things would be a major failure. So there's no way we can be leaving this thing. Sooner the better. So question is, if the technologies are already there, there's already there are some things which are happening. Now, what is that we can do to facilitate this industry to really scale up? like yes, consumer acceptance will definitely play a role, but that will be definitely guided by how good and how strong your regulatory frameworks are developed and how they are going to build or repose confidence in the consumers. Okay, if you got a very strong regulatory framework, then I think that will take care of the consumer confidence. And second, especially this industry is in a nascent stage, and I am myself seeing as a great opportunity. And if I were to get an opportunity, probably I would also like to jump in with some kind of innovations in especially smart packaging solutions. I don't know. I have got some ideas. Maybe others who have heard us would have some more ideas. Especially there's a lot of potential for coming up with innovative products, processes, which can be business opportunities for a larger cross section of people who are listening to us, and probably they should engage themselves actively and see how well or how actively they can go ahead for coming up with more innovative solutions so that we can make this industry a more successful one. Thank you for that opportunity. Parul, I don't know, as a professor, I keep talking, but anyway, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Yes.
No, sir. I think we as ClearMeet, and I especially, if we are talking to professors from NITIE, which is the Center of Excellence for Supply Chain and Operations, I think whatever you are telling will become the source of truth. And as you know, Professor Rofin sir has already said, that there has to be a need of efficient value chain designing. So ClearMeet will definitely look up to NITIE, and the students coming from NITIE, the professors from NITIE, to design that, not just for India, but for the global markets as well. So with this, I would like to say thank you. Thanks a lot for such a wonderful discussion we had, and for joining and, even reading about this concept. I'm sure that this was interesting, and this was interesting for our audience as well. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'll take a leave from here. I am Parul Soni, Chief Business Officer, ClearMeet.
Thank you. Thanks, Babu. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Vaibhav, sir. Thank you, Khanapuri, sir.
What a wonderful session. What a wonderful session. So, with this, we come to the end of the event, and I thank you all who have been patiently listening to the thought processes and the different stakeholders, their views, their thoughts, and their visions. And I hope that this webinar and this international conference was able to bridge the gap between what we do in the back end and how the audience or the consumer or the policymaker or the investor perceives it. And we do take some notes back home to work upon it. And I hope we bring more such thought discussions in future. With this, I thank you all once again for being part of such a wonderful discussion on the lines of sustainable meat solutions, looking for investing, innovating, and solving food challenges. And once again, thanking you all. Hope to see you soon. And we look forward for the next event that we will be doing shortly, and we will keep you posted. Thank you once again from everyone at the ClearMeet team. Thank you.